Welcome back to the Goal Line Stands Players Only Mount Rushmore special. We have shifted over to Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Links to this will be in your notes, and you can find it on our Facebook at facebook.com/GLStandShow. I am Mike, joined as always by Brett. A few particulars to get out of the way here. We are a Sports Talk Philly partner, sportstalkphilly.com, coming to Sportanarium Radio September 3rd with our big NFL preview show, supported by Michael's Glass Company, serving the Philadelphia tri-state area since 1978, 215-338-3293, and DePaul's Table, a modern Italian steakhouse, 7 East Lancaster Avenue in Ardmore. Tell them that we sent you. This is our Players Only Mount Rushmore. For the NFC North, it's pretty cut and clear. Players only. No coaches, no executives, no mascots. I tried to sneak Snowflake in when we were doing our AFC one. You can go check that out in the archives. Brett, this was an interesting one. I forgot. It's a very historical division.
It's the Norris division.
Yeah, I mean, this is the original. This is the NFL from, for the most part, from the inception. Yeah. So there was a lot to unpack here. I thought I shouldn't say they were difficult, but there's guys that got left off. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You had mentioned how you were trying to put on Snowflake, and this is clear and cut. It's players only. There is one player from one of your teams that raises a potential issue, who I'm going to get into after you present your Mount Rushmore.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. Let's kick it off. We're going to start. We always go in alphabetical order. So Chicago, Detroit, Green Bay, Minnesota. I have the Bears and the Vikings. We're going to kick it off in the Windy City. This one I thought was a little bit easier, but very old school. Dick Butkus is Mr. Bear. He's on there. There's no question about that, right? Like, who else are you going to put on there?
As the number one guy,
I'm not even slotting it in order.
I think he's kind of number one, though.
Right? So so number two and number three, you could reverse them however you want to do it. Some guy named Walter Payton, pretty good, right? I think he did his thing in the National Football League. Sticking in the running back room, Gale Sayers. And wrapping it up, my fourth, we're going to come back to modern times, so to speak, Brian Urlacher. I mean, there were a bunch of Singletaries, Dents, do you put in the fridge because it's the fridge kind of thing. There were a lot, Jim McMahon, because I'm a Jim McMahon guy. There was just a lot of history to the Bears. But in my mind, those four guys kind of encapsulate what Chicago football is. Chicago is very much, while it is in the Midwest, a Northeast city by attitude, right? Yeah, a little bit nicer.
Much nicer.
Yeah, they are much nicer. But to me, it's a very much a defensive type of city. They rely on defense, pounding the football. Devin Hester was a guy I thought about from a return perspective. But, not really. Not really. And I think the best years of the Bears were in the past.
Yeah. So a few, I just want to mention, and I wanted to know what you thought about them. Did you give much thought to Bronco Nagurski?
Yes. Yeah. I did. But I think there's a point where how old school do I want to go?
No, So that's the problem with Bronco Nagurski, Sid Luckman,
right?
Doug Atkins, all of these guys. Yeah.
I tried to spread it out over the course of, I think I kind of generationally, right? In a way where it was, all right, we know the Bears of our father's Bears, Butkus, Sayers. We didn't see the best of Walter Payton. I don't even remember watching him play, but we were alive.
Yeah.
Then you have what the Bears kind of became for their little bit of a run, and Brian Urlacher being one of the better linebackers of the past 25, 30 years.
No, absolutely. And another old timer would have been like Red Grange.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
It's they were one of what 10 teams for however many years. So it was hard to look back and say I'm going to pick all these old school guys because they should be there, but it's part of the exercise.
Yeah. So my name for you in terms of someone who it could have raised an issue was in the beginning of the Chicago Bears franchise, they had a player named George Halas. He was the player coach.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. That would have been I could have snuck him in. I wasn't even thinking that. See, when I was looking back and I'm like,
as a player, he doesn't deserve it. He wasn't a very good player.
But it could have been a nice little asterisk for me. Damn it.
Yeah, he could have had him. Could have had Vern Gagne.
Yeah, well,
I mean, he did everything.
That's exactly correct. Let's move on to Detroit. Oh, God. You got it. Good luck.
Okay. Well, there actually was a time when Detroit was a successful franchise, particularly in the 1950s.
This is true.
And I think, when you think about Detroit, really their best days, unfortunately, are behind them. Whether it's from way before we were born or even while we were alive. Because right now, currently, there are no players who would warrant consideration, really. To me, the first one is perhaps the greatest running back of all time, Barry Sanders, clear cut. Unfortunately, never brought home a championship for the team, but nevertheless, probably, I think you'd argue, the most talented running back of all time, retired too soon. Was just amazing to watch. Even now, like whenever it's his birthday and they're showing the clips on Instagram, it is remarkable to watch that guy play. It was fun. So Barry Sanders, number one. Number two was the quarterback of the era that I previously discussed in the 50s when they won several championships, and that's Bobby Lane. Bobby Lane was a unique character. Apparently the guy, was like smoking cigarettes, drinking beers during halftime, kind of just old school man's man kind of guy. But he was a Pro Bowler, All-Pro, Hall of Famer. So Bobby Lane, the next man on the Mount Rushmore. Then another guy, and it's amazing the accolades that this guy, not only is his number retired by Detroit, but he actually made 8 All-Pros and 10 Pro Bowls. Joe Schmidt, the linebacker. And the sad thing is most people are going to be like, who? He's just sort of forgotten in the annals of football history. Good old Joe Schmidt. But Joe, you're like, yeah, Joe Schmidt. Yeah, like, is he Mike's brother? No, that
was my neighbor.
Joe Schmidt?
Joe Schmidt across the street went before. Yeah.
Is he from Detroit?
No.
Okay. Well, so, yeah, Joe Schmidt. Lastly, going back to the modern era, a guy who will actually receive his gold jacket in a few weeks, Calvin Johnson, Megatron. One of the most unique physical talents the league has ever seen. Another guy, it's interesting how these Detroit guys, they all retire early. And not really due to injury. I think they're kind of like, yeah, I did my thing. I'm done. So Calvin Johnson, though, who's the first ballot Hall of Famer. So Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, Bobby Lane, and the venerable Joe Schmidt.
I agree with 3 of the 4 only because Joe Schmidt.
You've never heard of him.
I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah.
I agree with those. Well, look, when you have a book written about you, the Paper Lion was written by George Pimpleton about Lane. So, and obviously we know.
Hold on. George who?
Pimpleton, right?
Plimpton.
Whatever.
George Pimpleton.
I don't know. It is what it is. If you're Barry Sanders, we saw no Lomas Brown is interesting.
Okay, so Lomas Brown was on my next up. My others. The only 2 that were quasi current in that they played when you and I were alive were Lomas Brown and Herman Moore. Then in terms of old timers, I had Lem Barney, Yale Larry, Doak Walker. We always think of him in college. He came into the league, played for the Lions for like 5 years, made 5 All-Pros, won 2 championships, and then retired. Then Dick LeBeau, the player. That's another one actually, but he was a player on one team, a coach on another. But Dick LeBeau, the safety, and then Alex Karras, who also was a great actor.
He was a great actor.
Yes.
He was a very good actor. You have the Packers. Good luck.
Yeah, this is I had Pittsburgh in a previous division in when we did the AFC North. This is it's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, it's people are like, oh, it's got to be easy. Well, yeah, it's easy, but it's not, because which direction do you go?
Yeah, it's one of those times you wish the Mount Rushmore actually had like 12 faces on it as opposed to 4. Nevertheless, I think there are really 4 eras of Green Bay Packer football. There's the 30s, 40s Packers. There's the Lombardi Packers. Then there are the Brett Favre Packers, and then the Aaron Rodgers Packers, right? So I think I sort of gave away as some of that what I'm thinking here. So to me, the quarterbacks of 3 of those eras, to me, clearly make it. So that's Bart Starr, the quarterback who led the Packers to numerous NFL championships, as well as the first 2 Super Bowl championships. Brett Favre, the good old gunslinger, Super Bowl 31 champion. And then Aaron Rodgers, Super Bowl 45 champion, and currently in a bad mood. So Aaron Rodgers, those are my first 3. Quarterback obviously is the most important position on the team. So I thought that was the way to go. To me, I went offense for the first 3, so I thought someone had to represent the defense. And while there were great defensemen on the Packers, the person who I think was the most intimidating presence was Ray Nitschke. And actually, one quick little funny story. I was once at a benefit dinner when I was 5 years old and had the opportunity to meet Ray Nitschke. And I had only seen the Ray Nitschke from A, The Longest Yard, the original one, and B, NFL Crunch Course, where he looked so nasty and was yelling at people. I was so nervous, I spilled my drink all over myself. No, I was not drinking an alcoholic drink. I had like a Diet Coke or something. So he was very nice. He actually got me a napkin and everything. He was a nice guy. But Ray Nitschke, number 4. But see, when I tell you the others, you're going to be like, yeah, they should just have another Mount Rushmore. I mean, you have Don Hudson, who was the NFL's first great wide receiver, Willie Davis, Willie Wood, Forrest Gregg, Jerry Kramer, Paul Hornung, Jim Taylor. Go a little bit more modern. You have, to me, I think when you go more modern, there aren't as many. You have like Leroy Butler. I honestly didn't think about Reggie White. To me, he's an Eagle. I also think he had his best years as an Eagle. Still played well as a Packer, but to me, I always view him as an Eagle. So Sterling Sharp didn't play long enough. You have the Donald Drivers, guys like that. Amon Green was a good running back. Clay Matthews, not quite good enough. I mean, some of those guys I meant, those are like all Hall of Famers that I had mentioned from the Lombardi era. So
right, exactly. Yeah. No, it's interesting your take on Reggie White, because I was going to see where I knew he wasn't going to make your list, and I agree with your list. And when you were going defense, I'm like, you got to put Nitschke on there. That's the guy.
Yeah.
I agree with you with Reggie White, and that's probably a little bit of my Eagles bias showing up. But I think from a standpoint of a career, that it was him as an Eagle.
Yeah, so obviously for you, it would be an Eagles bias because you're an Eagles fan, but perhaps it's just
and we'll get to it when we get to the Eagles NFC East Mount Rushmore and the Eagles. I have a personal connection to Reggie White, and we can get to. He's obviously on mine, but so yeah.
But to me, I just felt as if his most dominant years were as an Eagle. Like, to me, when I think about him in that Super Bowl game, when he was amazing, it was kind of like, oh, wow, this is a flashback to Philadelphia Reggie White. It wasn't as consistent. He was getting older. It was a little bit longer in the tooth. Wasn't as much of a physical freak, had put on some weight. Not saying he wasn't great. Not saying he wouldn't fling me with that club move. Just saying, to me, I wouldn't put him on the Mount Rushmore. Also, when you have so many other great players. So
Fair enough.
there you have it.
Let's travel to beautiful Minnesota. This is a little bit of a mixture of both. This is another one where, like, you got the purple people eaters, right?
Yeah.
So it was hard to go through that defense and figure out who I was going to take off. You got guys, John Randall, right? Didn't make my list, but he's there. So let's kick it off. Let's go back old school. Fran Tarkenton. Alan Page. Going to move up a little bit in the more of the modern era. Chris Carter. And I finish it off. I mentioned him on our Football Friday show as a potential fit for the Rams at running back. Go back and listen to that, glstanshow.podomatic.com or Sports Talk Philly, Adrian Peterson. Now, and who's off the list, right? Who don't I have? I don't have Randy Moss. In my mind, it was a toss-up between Moss and Carter. I take Chris Carter over Randy Moss. You could flip-flop that.
Yeah.
It's fine. And there's just so many other guys. It's similar to Green Bay and similar to Detroit, where there was this whole generation of the Vikings. They were before what we got to now. And the thing is, it's just that the modern Vikings players, they're very, very good. You got to kind of mix it in there.
Yeah, I think also when you think about Randy Moss, obviously came into the league and just tore it up as a Viking. But then technically his best statistical year was as a Patriot. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, and didn't end all that well.
Yeah, well then he did like a tour of the league, and he went back to Minnesota at one point, I think.
Right, he did.
Yeah, it kind of lessens the value. Whereas Chris Carter had like an uninterrupted period of greatness with Chris. You didn't think of Jim Marshall running backwards?
No, I didn't think of Jim Marshall running backwards.
Yeah, no, it's just.
No. I thought of using the one slot for all the purple people eaters, but I didn't know if that was to be allowed, so I didn't do it.
Well, you got the best one,
right? That was the direction I went with it. Now we're not from Minnesota. There's probably people are like, how are you not going to put so and so on? But to me, when I think about the Vikings, if you ask me to think of Vikings players, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my. I mean, there's a few probably from the Tarkenton era, right? Then of the 80s, 90s Vikings, Randall McDaniel is like one that comes to mind. Yeah. But a great offensive guard. I think he's a Hall of Famer. Or if not, he's a borderline guy who should. But yeah, I think you got Adrian Peterson's the first ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Chris Carter is a Hall of Famer. Alan Page was one of the few players to win an MVP as a defensive player.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just encapsulates the Vikings franchise as a whole. I put Denny Green on there if I could, but I can't.
Yeah,
strictly for his rant.
Yeah, but that was when he was a Cardinal.
Oh, it was when he was a Cardinal. God damn it! It doesn't even count.
Yeah.
On that note, check out the show every Football Friday on sportstalkphilly.com. Coming to Sportanarium Radio on September 3rd. Follow us here on social at GL Stan Show. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Obviously, YouTube. You're seeing this on YouTube. Subscribe. Drop the subscribe. More of the content we'll be making it on YouTube from here on out. I'm Mike. That's Brett. Go support those that support us. sportstalkphilly.com, sportanarium.com. Michael's Glass Company, 215-338-3293. DePaul's Table, 7 East Lancaster Avenue in Ardmore. We will be back next week. We are going to be talking NFC. NFC South,
West,
right?
West.
We're going to do our NFC West, Mount Rushmore, leading up to our big NFC East. We'll see you later.